Hello, and welcome back to the Bottom Bins. You are joined again by Oran and by myself, Connor. Oran, how are we this week?
Very good, man. Very, very good. How are you?
Uh, Look, listen, I think for our first 2 weeks, we probably can't complain at the amount of football news that has transpired these last 2 weeks. It's been, I have to say, it's probably been as busy as we've ever been on the channel.
Oh, 100%, man. Like, you look at that Mo Salah stuff and all last week, like, it's just going from strength to strength, even when you see the Mbappe news this week, which we're not going to talk about in this episode, but still huge, huge news.
I think probably whenever more details emerge about that Mbappe story, we'll probably talk about it, I would imagine, either next week or maybe the week after, as we said, when more news on that emerges. But Oren, I'm going to hand it off to you and you're going to let the viewers know what we are in for this week.
Yeah, so just to start us off, we've been really humbled by the response to the last video. You know, I received a few messages, and O'Connor received a few messages from people. I'm glad to see a podcast back, and we're glad to be doing podcasts again. So thank you so much for your support, continued support throughout the 3 years that we've came and left yous and came and gone, and yeah, we're very thankful. Yeah, so in this episode, we're going to talk about the title race. It's heating up at the minute. You know, there's only 2 points at the top. We're also going to talk about the new Celtic manager, who's already facing exit threats after 3 winless games. And we're going to talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin and his recent goal scoring form. So yeah, sit back, enjoy the episode, and yeah, let's talk a bit of football.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think title race is probably the best place to start. Obviously, because we're not doing those match reviews anymore, we're sort of looking at it on a broader spectrum, and we can really use from the start of the season to now as a good case study. We're almost halfway through the Premier League season, and I think at the minute we probably have a good idea of who's there and who's thereabouts and who could possibly make late title charges. But I think, Oren, the team we should probably start with is the team that's leading the Premier League at the minute, and that's Arsenal. And in my opinion, right when we started the show, I actually backed Arsenal to win the league that year. I felt like every year I was backing them to win the league, and they never quite got over the line. But this time around, I do feel like they have the best squad in the Premier League. Um, they maybe they maybe don't necessarily have like the best player in the Premier League, but I think as a squad as a whole, they are they're probably the most complete team in the Premier League. Of course, there's questions over the manager. Is Arteta really the right man that can take that step and deliver them a Premier League title? But I would just look over, and I'd be very interested to see what you think about Mikel Arteta's Arsenal.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a personal too good word to say about Mikel Arteta. Not that I've met him, by the way. Just I mean, I don't really like his arrogance. Considering he's really won nothing at Arsenal. I know he's won the FA Cup and Charity Shield, but yeah, he's a manager. I don't like his antics on the touchline. I think if it's any other manager that's running up and down the touchline and always outside of his technical area, they're getting the yellow card. But I don't know. Look, Mikel Arteta, not a fan of him, but his Arsenal team is superb. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I thought Arsenal were going to win the league in any of the seasons that they were close. I don't think they're going to win the league again this year. I just don't think they have it in them. And that's over a full season, because I think they could win the Champions League. I think there's that type of squad where they can win one-off games. I think they will get a trophy this season because of one-off games. But when it comes to throughout the season, we've seen Arsenal in this position before. We've seen Arsenal 7 points ahead with 3 games to go and not winning the league. It's just kind of their DNA at the minute, but I definitely think they're improving. I do think it is a squad that's capable of winning the Premier League. I just think these mishaps and these performances where they drop points after being in such a commanding position, and after people start talking about them in such a positive and winning way, I just think that it hinders them a wee bit, and it might get to them and get to their mentality a wee bit. But as you said, in terms of squad, even in the last 3 years when they've been pushing to win the league, I still think Arsenal have had the best squad in the league, and I definitely still think they've got the best squad in the league. There's not one player in Arsenal that I wouldn't have starting for our team, Man United. There isn't one player in Arsenal that I don't think could start for any team in the Premier League. But look, signings have to come into the play there as well. Their big money signing was Victor Gyökeres, and that was the man that they thought was going to push them to the goals, them extra goals that were going to win them more games. And it just hasn't happened for him yet. Look, he's a good player. There's no doubt in that. But is he cut out for the Premier League at 27, 28 years of age? Only time will tell with that one. They've signed Madueke, who on first thoughts, going for 50, 60 million, whatever it was, I was thinking, this is another Kai Havertz signing. But he's proven his worth at the minute. He's becoming an integral part in that team. And look, the one thing I'll say about Arsenal, which I think they have over most teams in the league, probably City have this as well. If one of their best players comes out or gets injured, they have a right and ready replacement ready to go. And it's not going to detriment the team whatsoever. So credit to Mikel Arteta and credit to Arsenal for that. But yeah, in terms of winning the league, I can't see them win it this season, considering what's already happened. And just whenever City are in this type of form, I feel a lot less confident in City dropping points than I do in Arsenal dropping points. And that's what it's been like for the last 3 years. Now, they could absolutely go and prove me wrong, and look, more power to them if they do, but I just can't see it.
Yeah, it's, evidence, especially over the last few years, would suggest that, they do have a slip in them, and they definitely, as you've said, like that they have this ability to drop points in crucial moments. I just think they have secured some big results this year. Even when they look down and out, like I'll always go back to the Newcastle game earlier on this season, and even the game at the weekend, they're almost, they're pulling out miracles. And yes, I know that's not sustainable over the course of a season, but I feel like champions or champions elect have to find moments like that, and have to dig out and dig deep to get results like that. And I think, just as we're talking about the squad, like I do think that they're so multifaceted in so many areas. Like I think Arteta has built his ideal sort of 20, 21, 22 man squad there. It's like you said, if one comes out and another comes in, you don't really feel like there's much of a decline or much of a drop off in quality. I think, signings like Eze have been superb. Zubamendi has been superb for them as well. Rice has been a massive character in the middle of the pitch for them. I think, a lot of people would say that Rice is, he has a shout at the minute to be considered as the best midfielder in world football at the minute, because of his ability to do everything sort of going forward and coming backwards as well. He's a real sort of throwback midfielder. But I do agree with you, signings like Gyökeres, okay, he hasn't hit the back of the net all that often this season, and they would like him to get firing sooner rather than later. Probably the price tag hasn't paid off as of yet, but I would expect Gyökeres to get in and amongst the goals in this second half of the season. But look, listen, Oran, I can't disagree with what you said. It's Man City that are chasing them. It's a team that have been there countless times before. When blood's in the water and they smell blood, they're a team that are going to put their all into trying to catch Arsenal. And when you've got the experience of Guardiola, the form that Haaland's in, Phil Foden starting to come into form as well, I would be really, really worried if I was an Arsenal supporter, just at the fact that it is City that are really starting to pick up momentum at the minute.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And then you look at the rest of the top of that table, Aston Villa aren't dropping points. Chelsea's thereabouts. If we're being totally realistic, or, well, maybe not realistic, I don't think Liverpool's going to be there like too far away at the end of the season either. I think if they get 1 or 2 wins on the bounce, they could find their form again. But you look at Aston Villa, you look at Chelsea. Do you think them types of teams are going to pose any threat, or do you think it's really going to be a 2-horse race here?
I think that Aston Villa, especially out of say Villa and Chelsea, there, I think Villa are more of a threat than what Chelsea are. I think Chelsea's a bit like Man United at the minute. They're just so inconsistent. You don't know what Chelsea side's going to turn up. Same with Man United. You don't know what Man United side's going to turn up because if United hadn't dropped points at Bournemouth, hadn't dropped points with West Ham, and hadn't lost to Everton, like we would be having a very serious conversation here about United possibly pushing for a title. Now that's not going to happen this year. But it just shows you how tight it is between those teams up at the top of the league. But Villa at the minute are playing some absolutely outstanding stuff. Morgan Rogers is proven to be an absolute world beater in there at Villa. Like, people are talking about Semenyo, maybe going in January, but I would say the big money move in the summer is a lot of the top clubs are going to be looking at Morgan Rogers, and they're what's he going to cost? If Semenyo's 60 million, well then, look, I would argue that Rodgers is maybe a 70, 75 million player. I rate him that highly. I think he's that good. So if Villa put the foot down, which we know they are capable of doing, they could very much be in and amongst the mix. I agree with you as well. We said it last week when we were talking about Salah. Fully expect Liverpool to turn it round at some point. Now, am I banking on them to be in the title race as such? I don't think so. I think they've maybe lost too much ground already to be considered in that conversation. But then I suppose if Arsenal lose a couple of games and City lose a couple of games, you don't really know where the league's shaping up to be. But for me, I think the three teams that are very much in it at the minute are Arsenal, Man City, and Aston Villa. And I think people will be really foolish to rule Aston Villa out of that conversation, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. And as you said about Arsenal, there, champions elect, they need to dig out these results. The one thing about Aston Villa is, they will give you chances and they will concede goals, but they've got that old school mentality of if you score one, we're going to score two. If you score two, we're going to score three. And it's good to see that back in the Premier League. It's no doubt that Unai Emery's done an absolutely brilliant job with them. And as you say about Morgan Rogers, it's interesting to see he was linked with a move back to Man City. I think people forget that this is a player who was part of the swap deal on a £100 million deal for Jack Grealish. Could this be the first ever transfer where somebody goes as part of a swap deal and then £100 million transfer just to go back to that club in another £100 million transfer? Because look, if we're looking at today's market and we're looking at the way players are priced, Anthony Alango went for 60 million. There's absolutely no reason why Morgan Rogers cannot go for 100 million in today's market. It could be the first transfer of that kind. But I think we'll move on from the title race, Connor, and we'll
Absolutely.
start talking about Celtic's new manager coming in after Martin O'Neill's triumphant return. An interim return. He done very, very well with the club. Seemed to bring a bit of balance back to the club after Brendan Rodgers' resignation. And he brought that feel-good factor back to Celtic. But the new man's came from the MLS, and in the first three games, he's had 3 defeats. He had the chance to overtake Hearts at the top of the league, but that gap's grew to 6. Now they do have 2 games in hand. They lost to Roma in the Europa League, and they failed to retain their Scottish Cup after a loss to St Mirren 3-1 at Hampton Park, which is a huge loss for a club like Celtic. What do you make of his start at Celtic Park? He came out in an interview yesterday, or maybe it was today, at the time of recording, and he said he has nothing to prove when it comes to being the Celtic manager. But I'd very much doubt that. I very, very strongly disagree with that. What do you think about that?
I feel like, right, so when it was announced that he was being appointed, I'm not going to lie, I did have to do a bit of homework. I'd never heard of him. I think the managers that come from, like, say, the MLS or even lower European leagues, they're always, they're unknown quantities. You never really know what you're going to get. Is what they do well going to translate over to the league that they're moving to? And I think Celtic took a massive, massive risk with this appointment. There were names out there and there were names that were being floated about that were probably more, sort of safe guarantees that. And when I say guarantees, I don't mean that there were guarantees that Celtic were going to win the league this year or Celtic were going to go on and win a treble. Like that's not what I mean. I just mean guarantees in terms of sort of that instant performance and that instant feel of the club. I was actually surprised that they didn't keep O'Neill on until at least the cup final. I just thought, big trophy on the line, like Celtic would love more than anything to go and retain that cup. And I really felt like it should have been O'Neill in the dugout for that game, considering the good job that he had done on an interim basis. And then, yes, absolutely, maybe get the new manager in after that there. But I thought it would have been nice for Celtic to sort of give O'Neill that like crown and glory moment, that last big trophy win at Celtic where he was such a success. Um, I actually thought in the cup final, Celtic started the game really, really well. You could see the manager's imprint on the players already. I thought the press was fantastic. They were really neat and tidy in possession of the ball. They were using the flanks really, really well and really going at St Mirren. But listen, you have to give credit where credit's due. St Mirren deservedly won the game, and I can't believe that in the year 2025 we are talking about St Mirren beating Celtic in a cup final. Listen, I think it's great for Scottish football. I know that might be an unpopular opinion. I'm sure there's a lot of Celtic fans that listen to us and they mightn't be too happy to hear that, but I do think it is a great thing for Scottish football. I think maybe that's the kick up the ass that the Celtic board need. I know the supporters are not happy with the way the club's being run. They're not happy with the board, and you know maybe a result like that is a reminder of if you don't stamp and kick forward with dominance and assert yourself in the transfer market, then these lesser teams and smaller teams are going to catch you. And St Mirren and their manager, I think their manager he's from the north of Ireland, isn't he?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I think he is. I think he's from somewhere up here. I think he got it spot on the day. Tactics, right, and the way St Mirren executed the game plan were superb, and they were full value for the win. And look, Wilfred Nancy saying that he has nothing to prove as a Celtic manager. No, actually, you've got a lot to prove, and you've got a very hostile fan base there. That if you don't get it right and get it right soon, you'll find yourself without a job.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, we've seen it in the Premiership with Ange being sacked from Nottingham Forest. But just to move on to what you had said about the Celtic board, the chairperson of Celtic actually stepped down within the last half an hour. So
Oh,
there's been movements already within Celtic in the higher ups. So who knows what's going to happen with the manager? But yeah, as you said, St Mirren, great result for them. Great result for the club. I agree with you. Great result for Scottish football. It's going to be interesting now in the next few years to see the development of Scottish football, where it's no longer really a two-horse race. It's good to see Hearts up there fighting for the league as well. I still think Celtic's going to win the league, but it's good to see that that the dominance era isn't just we're going to win the league by 10 points and 15 points, 20 points every year. It's good to see that teams are finally competing again in the Scottish League. And you're seeing teams playing on the European front and all as well, which is good as well. So look, more part of Scottish football in the next few years. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that the Celtic manager's job is definitely hanging by a thread. Only 3 games in, and really only 1 week into his tenure. As you said, the Celtic fans can be hostile. They're very, very passionate about their club. So especially with the chairman there stepping down, it could be a change of scenery already for Wilfred Nancy. But we'll move on to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Signed as a free transfer to Leeds United from Everton. He was a stalwart for Everton in the first few years. But then in the last 2-3 seasons, injuries really hampered him, and there was never any doubt in his quality. It was just the injuries really played a part in his form. I think he only managed 2 or 3 league goals across the last 2 seasons. But already he's up and firing for Leeds, scoring some big goals in some big games. And he's outscoring some of the top striking signings in the league. He's outscoring Alexander Isak, Benjamin Sesko, Victor Gyökeres, and this is a free transfer from Everton. So, what do you think about that transfer? Could Dominic Calvert-Lewin potentially have moved to a bigger club in the summer, or do you think Leeds was the perfect club for him to move to?
I don't think he could have moved to a bigger club. I think if we were talking about Dominic Calvert-Lewin from 4 years ago, yeah, he would have had an absolute shout to go to a bigger club. Part of the England setup at that stage was scoring a lot of goals, particularly that sort of lockdown era under Carlo Ancelotti. Like he looked like a serious Premier League striker. his stock's definitely taken a hit these last few years. Again, as you rightly pointed out, Oran, injuries did not help the situation. Um, but it just goes to show, if a bit like how when we were speaking about Mount at United last week, like if you can get a player fit, the best trait for a player is availability. And if you can get a player available and get a player fit and firing, like Leeds have done with Calvert-Lewin, like even though it is a free transfer, you can get something out of it. You can get something out of the player. And I would say, the form that Calvert-Lewin is in at the minute is probably the best form he's been in since 2021. And, all credit to him. He's got himself in that position. He's got himself fit. And he's almost the first name on that Leeds team sheet at the minute. And I think, at Leeds, there's probably a bit less pressure on him than there was when he was at Everton. Everton, where you think about it, over in these last few years, constantly in the relegation dogfight, and it's hard, if he's not fit, a lot of supporters are pinning the blame on him, and why can't he ever be fit? And if he was fit, he would score goals for us, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. Now, yes, Leeds are absolutely going to be in for a relegation fight this year, but with Calvert-Lewin up there, you would give them a hell of a lot more of a chance of staying up than if they didn't have him. So, look, fair play to him. He's fit, he's firing, he looks like the Calvert-Lewin of old, and I think perfect signing for Leeds United, and could be the signing that keeps them in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's definitely a brilliant signing, especially with the Premier League experience, as you mentioned. One thing I always loved about Dominic Calvert-Lewin was his attacking threat in the air. He was always winning headers. He was brilliant for Everton, really, as a whole. And I think, their fans would say he's a cult hero at Everton as well. So I'd say, although they were sad to see him go, they knew it was the right time for him to go, obviously. I think the club definitely made the right decision not executing his contract extension. But yeah, I think Leeds is the perfect fit for him as well. Just coming up from the Championship, they need that Premier League experience to kind of drive them through in the tough fixtures. And Daniel Farke, it's hard to undermine the job he's done so far as well. When you think about that bottom three, I do agree with you. I think Leeds are going to be in a relegation scrap, but I just think that there's three worse teams than Leeds at the minute, and I think that could prove to be the case throughout the entire season. And if they keep putting up performances like they did against Man City, like they did against Liverpool, Leeds will always give you a tough game. That's the one thing about Leeds. Doesn't matter what division they're in, they'll always give you a tough game. But as I said about Aston Villa earlier, their mentality as well is if you're going to score 2, we're going to score 3. But they don't have the ability to score 3. But they do have the ability to concede 3. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Leeds. But yeah, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think, has been a brilliant signing.
It's, I think for, say, those teams that have come up from the Championship, sometimes you see some of the promoted sides will come up and they'll just splash a whole load of money in the hope that they uncover some sort of gems that are going to keep them in the league. More often than not, it doesn't work out. But I actually like what Leeds did in the summer. I like their transfer strategy, and it's clearly working at the minute. A free deal for Calvert-Lewin, it really was a no-brainer for one of those promoted sides. And to be fair, it was just Leeds that managed to get him snapped up. But it's as you said, like, when they had Patrick Bamford, there was a season where Bamford was really, really good in the Premier League. I think it might have been 3 years ago, 4 years ago now. Like, he was a really, really solid striker, but they lost that Premier League experience. So to go and replace it then on a free transfer is fantastic business. Like, we're talking about a Calvert-Lewin who, okay, he's maybe lost a yard of pace, but from what I've seen from him so far, he hasn't lost his attacking intelligence. He's getting into some fantastic goal scoring positions. Some of the goals he has scored are proper throwback striker finishes. He's getting the goals, he's getting into the box, and as you said, Warren, I think in terms of Premier League strikers, his aerial ability is probably unrivaled. And he's not the tallest striker in the world, but he always makes himself available inside the box and always gets up and competes with defenders. So I really, really like him. I know our friend Mincy, who is an Everton supporter, he really likes Calvert-Lewin as well. as you said, he was one of those Everton fans that was sad to see him go, but kind of like, say, Rashford at United, you just know when a player's time is up at a club and they need to move on for their own benefit and for the club's benefit. But listen, what was Everton's loss has well and truly become Leeds' gain.
Totally. And I'm just pointing out what you had said earlier as well. Their transfer strategy was really, really good in the summer. Not just Calvert-Lewin, but they signed Felix Namacha on a free transfer as well. And he's done really, really well in the Premier League so far as well. Got a goal against his former club, Man City, and all there too. A penalty. It was a pressure penalty too to step up in that moment against your former club. It's no easy feat.
Absolutely.
But I would look at the transfer strategy for their goalkeeper as well. I think that fella Perry, who came from Lyon, the Brazilian fella,
Yeah.
what an amazing signing he's been so far.
Serious goalkeeper.
Serious goalkeeper. We seen it in the Europa League last year, how good he was.
Yeah.
But you look at Leeds when they were in the Premiership the last time. Meslier always had the ability to be a good prospect goalkeeper, but he just never executed his potential, I don't think. And the thing about being one of them newly promoted sides, not just Leeds, you're going to face a lot of shots in every single game. So for them to strengthen that area of the pitch was crucial for their success so far. And success for Leeds is staying in the Premier League, and what we're seeing at the minute is a Leeds side that is well and truly capable of that. And it starts with the spine. Every top manager has said that the core of their team is the most important part of their team. Their goalkeeper, their two centre backs, their core midfielders, and the strikers. Everyone else filters in around them. So getting two good strikers on free transfers. That fella Tanaka in midfield, I think, is excellent. The Japanese fella, I think he's excellent.
Yeah, he is. He's super.
They've the likes of a strike in centre back. You know what you're going to get from him. And then a brilliant goalkeeper. So Leeds definitely have the potential to stay in the Premier League, and Calvert-Lewin, what a signing.
Absolutely.
We've kind of rushed through that podcast, which is good. You've got all the information in a very, very short period of time. But we're going to move on to a segment that we did have in our previous podcasts. We're bringing it back. We trialed it on TikTok and Instagram over the years, and it done really, really well. And it's the Who Am I part of the series. Listening back to some of our podcasts, Connor, I remember making clips, and we done one in particular, and it was Diego Costa, and you didn't use your buzzer or something, and Dorman went mental, and it was brilliant. I think it's one of our most viewed clips and everything. I still think he holds a grudge to me to this day for awarding you both a point. But we've got a Who Am I for you. So we're going to do it a little bit different. So we're going to do 5 clues to get this player. If you get the player after 1 clue, you get 5 points. 2 clues, 4 points. 3, 4, 2, 5, 1. So I want the viewers at home, and Connor, you in particular as well, I want you to record your scores. We're going to do this bi-weekly, if not weekly, but I would say bi-weekly. And come the end of the season, I want you to tell us the score you got. And there might be a giveaway, there might be something in it. But anyway, we'll get straight into it. Connor, you ready to go?
I think so.
So, clue number 1. I retired in 2016, having won 2 Premier Leagues, a Serie A, and the Champions League in my career. I'll give you a moment to brew. You tell me when you're ready to rock.
So, retired in 2016 with 2 Premier League titles, a Serie A title. What was the other one, sorry?
Champions League.
And the Champions League. Oh. Okay, I'll go for another clue.
Okay, the 4-point clue. At club level, I've played with Iker Casillas, Steven Gerrard, Ronaldinho, and Peter Schmeichel.
That's tough.
Some big names there, man.
I was gonna say Xabi Alonso, but I don't think Xabi Alonso retired in 2016. I think he was like 2017 or 2018 when he retired.
It's not Xabi Alonso.
It's not Xabi Alonso. Okay, I'll go for another clue.
Number 3. I have accumulated over 123 million euros in transfer fees over 17 career transfers. 3 of which being to the same club in India at the end of my career.
In India?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, who went and played in India?
A few of the transfer gurus will be straight on that, lad, let me tell you. As soon
Is,
as I tell you who it is, you'll remember even the club that he was playing for in India.
oh, jeez, I'm going to need no clue.
So the 2-point clue, number 4. I've scored 125 Premier League goals across 6 different clubs, even winning the Golden Boot in the 2008-09 season with 19 goals.
08-09 season. Is this player a striker?
Yes.
Oh, 08-09. Who would have been the top strikers in the Premier League? Right, well, Ronaldo was still at United. Rooney was obviously still at United, but it's not either of them. They didn't play in India. Emmanuel Adebayor?
No. You're on the right lines, though.
Oh, is it
You're thinking
Nicholas
about the
Anelka?
Nicholas Anelka, 2 points, Connor. 2
I don't
points.
remember Nicholas Anelka playing in India though.
Yeah, Mumbai City. He went to
Mumbai.
Mumbai City in 2014, then left them. Then in 2015 went back to them, then left them, then went back to them in 2016, then retired.
Yeah, and then whenever you said that he played with Schmeichel, I was like, it's completely threw me.
Yeah, no, look, I was thinking that one whenever I was saying about people playing in India, people were going to think about Robbie Fowler because obviously he played in India as well. And then Schmeichel, my instincts would have been straight away to Man United. And then Iker Casillas obviously was Real Madrid, so you're thinking who played for United and Real Madrid. So it is a tough one. But then I think when you hear that he played for, which is the 5th clue, his notable clubs, he played for Chelsea, PSG, Madrid, Liverpool, Juventus, City, and Arsenal. You know, he also played for Bolton and West Brom in there as well. Like this,
Yeah.
the definition of a journeyman, but
Yes.
also a world class goal scorer on his day as well. So yeah,
Oh,
Nicholas
absolutely.
Anelka was the guested player.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
And yeah, you finished with 2 points there, Connor. You done very, very well, to be fair.
Yeah, I done better than I probably thought I was going to
Yeah,
do after I heard that second clue. I was like, Jesus, this
I'd
is
say people
coming.
were waiting for that last clue, to be fair.
Yeah.
So look, anyway, tell us how you done in the comments below, how you done at home. And we'll have another one of them, if not next week, the week after. Well, in fact, next week we'll probably not have a podcast because it's Christmas.
That's true, actually. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so what better way to finish it off than to wish you all happy Christmas, and we'll see you before the new year, hopefully. But if not, happy Christmas and happy new year. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And as always, Connor,
Keep a bottom bends.
keep it bottom bends. See you later.
Yeah. See you later, folks.